Thank you. I wouldn't miss this show for anything. We have 4 really good witnesses, and
Should we charge admission? What do you think? Maybe next time.
Well, I wouldn't go
Next
too
time.
far.
Right.
Yeah, maybe next time. But I have to say, listening particularly to the 3 local and state officials, your stories and your reflections, your experiences reflect the diversity of our great country, and I think service testimony, each together and certainly all together, each individually and all together, as to why flexibility is so darn important. I mean, when I hear about drought in Arizona and flooding in the Northeast, and we hear from Sheldon and Senator Carper and our friends from the coast about your situation a lot. Obviously, the mountains. I mean, we have a diverse country. Our geology is different. Our hydrology is different. Our demography is different. We're all different, and this just speaks volumes to the importance of federalism and states having more control. So all of that said, a couple things. I was tempted, frankly, to give all 5 of my minutes to Secretary Wriston because I want to hear the whole bumblebee story, but I have a pretty good sense of what it's about. I have a pretty good sense of what it's about, and it too speaks to the importance of getting God's human creatures higher up the food chain, if you will, of importance at the bureaucracy. But you said something interesting, Mr. Wriston, that I want to explore a little bit. In referencing the lack of a specific greenhouse gas rule, you said that the law is clear, it's not in there, or something to that effect. The problem with the bureaucracy is what they've figured out is most of the time they do what we require them to, but not even that all the time. But they almost never pay attention until we tell them what they're prohibited from doing. Do you know what I mean? So the lack of a prohibition to them is license to do whatever they want. And that's what you're experiencing in a lot of these things. In fact, Mr. Timon, we're seeing lots, I've noticed, out of transportation, out of DOT, lots of Federal Register, notices, right? There's an uptick in all of that. At a time when, I love what you said, Madam Mayor, when you said, talking about all your concerns, and you said, and do it fast. Fast isn't in the bureaucratic mindset. So I want to go to something we haven't talked about that is law, that was in the law specifically, and that is the one agency decision rule. And the reason for one agency decision and why I think it works so well, and I spent 10 years as a regulator in North Dakota. One agency decision is not to cut corners. It's not designed to diminish the integrity of oversight or environmental protection. In fact, not at all. I think you can do it much, much better, much, much faster, with more efficiency and integrity, with one agency decision-making, because if you do things, rather than doing them chronologically, if you do them chronologically rather than, chronologically rather than concurrently, you're gonna add time. But if you do it concurrently, you're gonna add synergy, not just efficiency, but synergy. And that's what makes sense to me. But the bureaucracy likes chronological because it serves their interests best. That way, every agency can take as long as they want to do a simple thing, and then pass it to another agency, take as long as they want to do a simple thing. And we're living at a time when we have workforce shortages. It's getting harder to attract people to public service, just as it is to the private sector. And I think the one agency decision rule is not being utilized, and I think could be the answer to a lot of your challenges. And I'd be interested, starting with you, Mr. Timon, from the association standpoint. Again, you represent a lot of diversity, and we see great examples of it sitting right next to you. Couldn't the one agency decision become part of the solution?
Well, thank you for that question, Senator. I do think that every state DOT in the country supports finding ways to expedite the approval of projects and doing it in a responsible way where we're not harming the environment. I do think that the federal one decision provisions, do carve out a path for there to be a more efficient decision-making process. I mean, we've been advocating for 10, 15 years for a more concurrent review process as opposed to consecutive. I think this provides a good foundation for us to move forward in that direction.
Okay, real quickly then, on the issue of, because you talked about the grants, the discretionary grants, we've heard about that, the importance of the formula. Again, can we simplify even the discretionary grant programs by just applying the basics of the form? Because again, they're coming up with more ways to make it harder rather than facilitating it, in my view.
Well, one thing that the administration did do for several of the discretionary grants is they came up with a common application, and I have to give them a lot of credit for that because I think that did help for people that were potential grantees. They were able to just go to one application, but it wasn't for every discretionary grant that they had out there. I think that is going to be a challenge for this administration moving forward, given the size of the discretionary grants and the number of them. How can they do that in an efficient manner to get those, to process those applications and get the dollars out on the street? I think that's going to be very tough over the next 4.5 years.
All of the directors are nodding their heads. Yeah. Thank you all for being here.